All right, let's go over what has happened with Bitcoin since my last video, which I posted on Sunday. So that would have been when we were right about here. And the main points of that video, I pointed out the bearishness that I was seeing on Market Cipher on the daily time frame. On the 4-hour, things were leaning more bearish than bullish. But despite that, I still marked out some areas of support that I was interested in, because you never know, things can change by the time you reach support. We could have like slowly crawled our way down here, and by the time we actually put in the bottom, we may have seen some good looking divergences on the 4-hour. We did at the time have potential to form divs. I mean, we saw a little bit of direction with momentum, and so I basically planned out some support in case we started seeing some bullishness, but we did not. We actually pretty much voided the potential divs as soon as we got a move into this box. So if I go ahead and put a horizontal line at the bottom of this momentum wave right here. This is like the one I was looking at for the divergence. And then I put a vertical line where pretty much this momentum wave got down to this point to void the divergences. You can see we voided it pretty much as soon as we got into the box. The second 4-hour candle that printed, actually the first, we didn't even hit it with this candle. So as soon as we got into the box, we had already voided the divergences. Momentum already put in a lower low. Money flow was already turning to the downside, very close to voiding the divergences. So when I saw that, I knew to stay away. I did not touch anything there, did not take any longs, and that was pretty much telling me that there's a good chance we just end up losing this box, and that is what happened. So I was watching Market Cipher develop in real time, and there was no sign of bullishness. There was no confirmation, so it's not that this idea didn't work, it's that we didn't see the things necessary for the idea to even play out in the first place. We didn't see any divergences or any kind of bullishness in that area. And the second potential trade idea, the one that I didn't like as much, the 786 and maybe SFPing this low down here, that did not work either. We pretty much wicked far down below that, so clearly that idea didn't work. I don't even think there was a false reaction on that. I'd have to go to a lower time frame. There was a little bit of a false reaction here, but that's not anything I traded with how the money flow was looking at the time. And the gist of the story here is that Market Cipher told me to stay away, and it was right. And at this point, we still have not hit the range low. I was looking at this as my next target, basically, if we lost the value area low, and we still have not hit that. We bounced before it. And at this point, as price is getting a bit of a bounce, I am really paying attention to this value area low. Now, something I want to point out is that these are different across different exchanges. If I go to Bybit, you'll see that the value area low is at a slightly different spot than the Binance one. So this one is coming in roughly 63,930, and this one is 62,500. So they're pretty far apart. The Bybit one is coming in roughly around here. And so at this point, I am watching these two areas, and I'm looking for a potential backtest. We could backtest this area as resistance before continuing lower. And, if we're able to reclaim this area, then maybe we see a rotation to the upside and front run another key point in this range, like we have been doing with the high. Maybe we now front run the low. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at next, the important stuff. And I also want to run over some extra areas of support in case the actual range low doesn't end up holding. What if we break down out of this? I think it's, a pretty decent time to start talking about some support that we have lower than us because, we have been ranging here for a while. At some point, the range is going to break. I want to be ready for it. And, we got some support levels below us, some very obvious ones that I see most people talking about. We have this mini range here, and I actually found some confluence with this mini range that I actually think is very interesting. We have confluence with the point of control of the uptrend from this point from January 22nd onwards up to all-time high. This was a very aggressive uptrend, very aggressive push, and the point of control of that is coming in right in the middle of this mini range. So I like the confluence around here, and that makes me very interested in that little zone. And below that, we have a bit wider of a support zone. You technically can take this all the way down to like this range low. We got a bit of consolidation and price action. I usually look at these areas as support, but I wanted to refine this, so I took the fixed range pull of this area. And ideally, if we're gonna get a move into this range, we find support before the point of control. Not that it matters all that much, because we could come down to the low end of the range, maybe even SFP this low over here, and that could mark some kind of a significant bottom, maybe just a temporary bounce, maybe an actual reversal. I don't know, but I am looking at this range as support as well. And this range does have some confluence with this anchored VWAP, which I don't know where that is from. That's from a weird spot, it looks like. I probably pulled that on the weekly time frame. I had to guess, and I probably pulled it from this low, so yeah, that is what I did. I actually want to go to the daily and see how that changes pulling it from the daily low, because, I'm really pulling it from this candle up here on the daily. It doesn't really look right to me, but it's still in the same spot, so yeah, there is confluence from there. This was a significant bottom point. It was the low end of a range. We just SFP'd the range low, and that caused a massive pump. So I think this is an important anchored VWAP. And to make this very simple, I'll mark out my key supports with some numbers here. So key support number 1 is going to be this range low. Support number 2 is this box, and support number 3 is this box. And, that pretty much sums it up. Simply put, for my higher time frame levels of support. In terms of resistance, I'm not really too worried about anything until we start reclaiming value area low. Then I can start looking at what resistance we formed up here. So now I'll do some top-down market cipher analysis, and I do also want to talk about my positions, how I'm managing these shorts. So I'll go over that at the end, but first, starting off on the weekly, let's see how this developed, because this has changed since my last video. And I tried to predict how this was going to update in my last video, and for the most part, I think I was right. So we saw momentum turn to the downside. We saw money flow take another turn to the downside. Kind of slight one, but still it moved further down. And the VWAP I was unsure of, because I was talking about how the VWAP is the most leading indicator, really. You'll start to see this turn up before you start seeing momentum turn up, and you'll start seeing momentum turn up usually before you start seeing money flow turn up. So, the VWAP's the fastest, money flow's the slowest. But, given the fact that we did not hold support, I am not surprised that VWAP has come down to put in a lower low. We're not seeing this flatten out or anything. It's still pointing directly to the downside. So we're not seeing, anything in the weekly VWAP saying that we are approaching a bottom yet. And overall, things on the weekly just continue to point to the downside. The daily is looking very ugly right now. We're actually very close to putting a new lower low with money flow. A new lower low in this overall trend, where we have lower high, lower low, now potentially lower high before another lower low. If we, get another little move down with money flow, that, will continue this overall downtrend. And we also see an overall downtrend with momentum. You can just roughly point out the lower lows and lower highs, and we have gone on to put in a new lower low with momentum. And given the fact that we're not really seeing anything that I would label as bullish on the medium-term time frames, we're seeing lower lows with money flow and momentum across basically all the mid-term time frames. I don't need to get too specific with this. We're clearly seeing lower lows. We're clearly seeing the bearish strength increasing. So that is pretty much aligning with what I'm seeing on the daily and on the weekly. Honestly, right now, Market Cipher is pointing to the downside on all time frames, or at least the significant ones. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I think, we're coming to this range low 100%. I do think it's more likely that we hit the range low rather than bottoming out here kind of in the middle of nowhere and then reversing in the range again. But, I'm aware that this could happen. And like I said, I'm really watching the value area low. If we can reclaim that, then I am looking for another push to the upside in this range. But maybe it's only up to like point of control or something before rejecting again. It's hard to say right now. But as long as we are below these value area lows, I think it is much more likely that we end up rejecting in this area and moving lower. And now I'll talk about these short positions. So I did close this one out entirely. I locked in just under 10% with a 1% risk, so a 10 to 1 risk reward in terms of what I actually locked in, and taken my position down to this actual low, which I didn't close my position at this actual low. I took profits probably somewhere around this low, and then I ended up closing out the rest of my positions somewhere up here. Once I saw some local bullish confirmations, I decided to close it and look for another short, which, I am potentially looking for a move up to value area low for another short opportunity, but we'll see what happens. We'll see if there's a trade set up there. So yeah, because I took partial profits, this 43 to 1 risk reward position right here only locked me in 10%. I locked in, a little less than a quarter of this actual risk reward, which is fine. This was a very local scalp trade. I was taking profits within this local range here. And the fact that it continued to run afterwards is just a bonus. And I managed to lock in like an extra 6% just from, holding this thing down So I am happy with that. And this trade is still partially open. I have about 5% locked in for this trade already, and there's about 4 to 5% unrealized in it, depending on where we're at. And this one, the actual position size, again, down to the low, which I didn't take profits at the exact low, but, just to show you, the actual risk reward of this position is 25.3. Again, taking partials, I'm not going to lock in that whole thing. If I had held this whole trade from where I entered and took all the profits out of this low, I would have netted 25% of my account. But responsibly trading, taking profits locally, where, if you enter a local trade setup, you have local targets, that makes sense to where you can de-risk the trade. I found that to overall be a better way of approaching it than just, trying to look for these Hail Mary trades and hoping to, be able to close the whole trade out at the low. That's not really how I trade. I take partials, and I've found more success doing that. But there is a reason that I let some of these positions run, especially when the higher time frames are pointing down like they have been, or, just in general, when the higher time frames are, backing up a trade idea on the lower time frames. I like to leave some to run. That's pretty much all I want to talk about in this video. At this point, I'm either waiting for one of these higher time frame levels to be hit, or I'm looking for some kind of a good trading context locally. Maybe we form some kind of range here, something that I can trade. I feel like it's still kind of a little early to be looking for range trades right now, unless you're like really zoomed in on like the 5-minute time frame. There may be some opportunities to scalp. But, unless I see a really good setup, I'm not really interested in, giving back the profits that I just had from these trades. So I'll wait for a good setup. And that is about it. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like, subscribing, and leaving a comment. I appreciate the support. And I'll see you all in the next video.